Elton John drops by John's studio unannounced. Their impromptu jam session went viral. The year was 1971. A chill, damp breath clung to the English countryside, a silent witness to the unraveling of an empire. Not the grand, global one, but a more intimate dominion, the Beatles. Its fractured pieces lay scattered, and in the heart of Tittenhurst Park, John Lennon wrestled with the ghosts of what was and the shadows of what might never be again. The sprawling Georgian mansion, a monument to faded grandeur, stood amidst acres of manicured lawns and ancient trees, each rustling leaf a whisper of forgotten dreams. It was a place of immense beauty, yet for John, it often felt like a gilded cage, its opulence a stark contrast to the raw, often brutal honesty of his inner world. The grand piano, a silent sentinel in the vast white room, bore the weight of unwritten melodies, unheard confessions. Its polished surface reflected the gray English light, a mirror to the soul of the man who sat before it. John, a man perpetually at war with himself, sought solace in isolation, yet craved connection like a drowning man craves air. The world saw the defiant icon, the revolutionary, the sharp-tongued provocateur. But beneath the veneer, a raw nerve thrummed, exposed to the biting winds of change, the relentless scrutiny of a public that both adored and condemned him. He was a paradox, a walking contradiction, and Tittenhurst was the stage for his most private battles. He was crafting Imagine, a hymn to a world he desperately wished into existence, even as his own world crumbled around him. The studio, a labyrinth of wires, mixing boards, and reel-to-reel machines, became his confessional, his battleground. Each note, each lyric, a defiant whisper against the roar of public expectation, the sting of betrayal, the lingering echoes of a band that had defined a generation. He was searching for a new sound, a new truth, a way to articulate the complex tapestry of his disillusionment and his enduring hope. But the path was shrouded in fog, obscured by the weight of his own legend. The air in the studio was thick with cigarette smoke, the scent of old wood, and the faint metallic tang of recording equipment. A heavy silence hung, punctuated only by the crackle of a tape machine, the distant caw of a crow, or the soft scratch of John's pen on paper. He was alone, or so he thought. The gates of Tittenhurst were formidable, his privacy fiercely guarded by a retinue of staff and an unspoken aura of untouchability. Yet, on this particular, unremarkable afternoon, fate, or perhaps a mischievous spirit, had other plans. A shadow was about to fall across his carefully constructed solitude, bringing with it a melody he never anticipated. A presence, vibrant and unexpected, was about to breach the fortress, carrying a different kind of magic, a different kind of chaos. The quiet was about to shatter, and with it perhaps a piece of John's carefully guarded heart. The world outside was about to collide with the world within, and nothing would ever quite be the same. Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content that's coming up. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The crunch of gravel, a sound usually reserved for expected arrivals, echoed faintly through the thick studio walls. John, lost in the intricate tapestry of a new chord progression, barely registered it. His focus was absolute, a singular beam piercing the creative darkness. A man consumed by the act of creation. But then, a distinct flamboyant laugh, utterly out of place in the solemn halls of Tittenhurst, cut through the air. It was a sound that belonged to grand stages, to sequined spectacle, to the vibrant, burgeoning glam rock scene, not the quiet, introspective world John had built around himself. It was a laugh that demanded attention, a declaration of presence. He looked up, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face, quickly followed by a flash of bewildered recognition. Who dared? His security was legendary, his desire for solitude infamous. The studio door, usually locked, usually guarded, creaked open with an almost theatrical flourish. And there he stood, a figure ablaze in a velvet suit, a riot of color against the muted tones of the studio. Oversized, glittering glasses reflected the studio lights like twin suns, obscuring his eyes but amplifying his presence. A mischievous, almost impish grin split his face, a clear challenge to John's carefully maintained composure. It was Elton John, unannounced, uninvited. A supernova crashing into John's carefully curated universe. A burst of flamboyant energy in a room accustomed to brooding silence. Elton, or Reggie Dwight as he was known to few, was a force of nature, young, audacious, and brimming with an almost childlike enthusiasm. He carried with him the vibrant energy of a new era, a stark contrast to the melancholic introspection that often permeated Tittenhurst. He held a small, wrapped gift, almost an offering in one hand, a peace treaty in a velvet-clad fist. "Johnny boy," Elton boomed, his voice echoing through the high ceilings, a vibrant splash of color in John's monochrome world. "Heard you were holed up here making magic. Thought I'd drop by. Hope you don't mind the intrusion, darling." His eyes, though hidden behind the tinted lenses, seemed to sparkle with a mixture of genuine admiration and playful defiance. John stared, a mixture of shock and grudging amusement warring in his eyes. He hadn't seen Elton in months, not since a brief, intense encounter in London, a fleeting connection forged in the smoky haze of a late-night club. The younger musician had always held a peculiar fascination for John, a blend of raw talent and unbridled showmanship that John, in his own way, admired. Elton possessed a fearlessness, a theatricality that John, for all his own rebellion, had shed with the Beatles' breakup. But this was unprecedented. Elton, with his innate charm and utter disregard for conventional boundaries, had simply arrived. He had charmed his way past the formidable gates, past the stern-faced security, driven by an impulse only he could explain, a magnetic pull towards the legendary figure within. The studio, usually a sanctuary of controlled chaos, suddenly felt too small, too quiet for Elton's expansive presence. He surveyed the room, his eyes twinkling, taking in the scattered lyric sheets, the half-empty teacups, the overflowing ashtrays, the air of intense, solitary work. He moved with an almost balletic grace, despite his flamboyant attire, a natural performer, even in the most intimate of settings. "Mind if I?" Elton gestured vaguely towards the grand piano, a silent question hanging in the air, a challenge and an invitation. John, still processing the sheer audacity of the visit, the unexpected breach of his fortress, simply nodded, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on his lips. The quiet had been shattered. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was exactly what John Lennon, deep down, truly needed. A jolt, a disruption, a reminder that the world outside his walls was still vibrant, still creating, still alive. Elton, without further preamble, glided towards the piano. His fingers, adorned with rings that caught the studio lights, hovered over the keys, a silent prelude to the storm about to break. John watched, a flicker of curiosity replacing his initial surprise. He had heard Elton play, of course, seen him on television, witnessed the burgeoning phenomenon. But to have him here, in his sanctuary, at his piano, was different. It was an invasion, yes, but one tinged with an undeniable sense of destiny. Two titans, from different eras, different worlds, about to collide in a most unexpected way. Elton began to play. Not a grand, showy piece, but a soft, almost tentative melody. It was a new song, raw and unfinished, a nascent creation born from his own restless spirit. The notes hung in the air, delicate and vulnerable, a stark contrast to his usual bombast. It was a ballad, infused with a melancholic beauty that resonated deeply with John's own current state of mind. Elton's voice, when it came, was a revelation. Stripped of its usual theatricality, it was pure, soulful, carrying a weight of emotion that surprised John. He sang of loneliness, of searching, of the fragile hope that flickers in the darkest hours. John found himself drawn in, his own creative defenses slowly crumbling. He picked up his acoustic guitar, almost instinctively, and began to strum along, a quiet counterpoint to Elton's piano. It wasn't a planned collaboration, not a conscious decision, but an organic response, a musical conversation that transcended words. The studio, usually a place of solitary struggle, transformed into a space of shared vulnerability. The air crackled with an unspoken understanding, a recognition of kindred spirits, both burdened by the weight of their talent, both seeking meaning in a world that often felt chaotic and indifferent. As Elton finished the verse, he looked at John, a silent question in his eyes. John, without hesitation, began to sing. Not Elton's lyrics, but his own. A spontaneous outpouring of the thoughts and feelings that had been swirling within him. He sang of fractured dreams, of the search for peace, of the enduring power of love amidst the ruins. His voice, raw and unpolished, blended with Elton's, creating a harmony that was both unexpected and profoundly moving. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated musical alchemy, two distinct voices finding common ground in the universal language of emotion. The tape machine, forgotten in the corner, silently captured every note, every nuance, a hidden truth unfolding in the heart of Tittenhurst. This impromptu jam session, born of an unannounced visit, was becoming something far more significant than either man could have imagined. It was a secret revealed, not to the world, but to themselves, a glimpse into the depths of their shared artistic souls. The jam session continued, a spontaneous combustion of talent and raw emotion. Elton moved from his nascent ballad to a more familiar tune, a bluesy riff that John immediately recognized. He joined in, his guitar weaving intricate patterns around Elton's powerful piano chords. The energy in the room shifted, from introspection to a vibrant, almost primal joy. They traded licks, improvised melodies, their voices intertwining in a dance of call and response. It was a conversation without words, a testament to the universal language of music, a bridge between two seemingly disparate worlds. The studio staff, usually meticulous and unobtrusive, found themselves drawn to the control room, their faces pressed against the glass, silent witnesses to the unfolding magic. They had seen John work countless times, witnessed his genius firsthand. But this was different. This was John, unburdened, uninhibited, playing with a joyous abandon they hadn't seen in years. Elton, too, seemed to shed his public persona, revealing a depth and vulnerability that was rarely seen outside his most intimate circles. The tape machine, a silent, unblinking eye, continued to record, capturing every note, every laugh, every shared glance. Hours melted away. The afternoon light faded, replaced by the soft glow of the studio lamps. Empty teacups and overflowing ashtrays accumulated around them, testament to the intensity of their creative communion. They played old rock and roll standards, Lennon-McCartney classics reimagined, and new, unfinished pieces, each song a thread in the tapestry of their unexpected collaboration. There was no ego, no competition, only a shared passion for the music, a mutual respect that transcended their individual fame. It was a rare glimpse behind the curtain, a moment of pure, unadulterated artistry, free from the pressures of expectation and public scrutiny. At one point, Elton launched into a playful, almost mocking rendition of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, a Beatles classic. John, initially surprised, quickly joined in, his voice filled with a wry amusement. They laughed, their voices echoing through the studio, a sound that had been too rare in Tittenhurst since the breakup of his legendary band. It was a moment of catharsis, a release of the unspoken tensions that had weighed so heavily on John. Elton, with his vibrant energy and infectious enthusiasm, had managed to crack open the shell that John had built around himself. The music flowed, a river of sound, carrying with it the weight of their pasts and the promise of an uncertain future. The unseen audience, the silent witnesses in the control room, knew they were experiencing something truly extraordinary, a secret history being written in real time. This wasn't just a jam session. It was a revelation, a testament to the enduring power of connection, even in the most isolated of lives. As the last notes of a particularly raucous blues number faded, a comfortable silence settled over the studio. The air, once thick with tension and the unspoken weight of John's solitude, now hummed with a different kind of energy, one of shared creation, of unexpected camaraderie. John leaned back, a rare, genuine smile gracing his lips. He looked at Elton, truly looked at him, seeing beyond the flamboyant attire and the public persona, recognizing a fellow traveler on the tumultuous road of artistic expression. "You know, Reggie," John said, using Elton's birth name, a gesture of intimacy that surprised even himself. "You've got a knack for turning up when you're least expected and most needed." Elton chuckled, adjusting his glasses. "Well, Johnny boy, some might call it a talent. I call it intuition. Or perhaps just a good sense of when a legend needs a bit of a shake-up." Their eyes met, and in that shared glance, an unspoken pact was forged. It wasn't about contracts or collaborations, not yet. It was about mutual respect, about the recognition of a shared artistic spirit that transcended their individual fame and the generational divide. The conversation drifted, from music to life, from the pressures of fame to the quiet anxieties that plagued them both. John spoke of the lingering shadows of the Beatles, the constant comparisons, the struggle to forge a new identity. Elton, in turn, spoke of the relentless demands of his burgeoning career, the loneliness of the road, the constant need to innovate and surprise. They found common ground in their shared experiences, two men at different stages of their journeys, yet both grappling with the profound isolation that often accompanies immense success. It was in this moment of shared vulnerability that a deeper truth emerged. John, for all his outward defiance, carried a profound sense of loss, a yearning for the collaborative spirit that had defined his early career. Elton, for all his outward exuberance, sought validation, a connection with the very legends who had inspired him. Their impromptu jam session had not just been about music, it had been about healing, about finding a momentary respite from the relentless pressures of their lives. The studio, once a fortress of solitude, had become a sanctuary of connection, a place where two souls, through the universal language of music, found a common chord. The climax wasn't a grand crescendo, but a quiet, profound understanding, a moment of genuine human connection that would echo far beyond the walls of Tittenhurst. The impromptu session ended as abruptly as it began. Elton, ever the showman, declared he had other glamorous engagements to attend, but not before extracting a promise from John for a future, more formal collaboration. John, surprisingly, agreed. The air in the studio, once heavy with the weight of his solitude, now felt lighter, infused with a new, vibrant energy. Elton's unexpected visit had been more than just a musical interlude. It had been a catalyst, a jolt to John's system, reminding him of the joy of spontaneous creation, the power of shared artistry. In the days and weeks that followed, John found himself returning to the piano with a renewed vigor. The melodies flowed more freely. The lyrics came with greater ease. The ghosts of the past, though still present, seemed less oppressive, their whispers softened by the echoes of Elton's laughter and the memory of their shared music. He began to experiment with new sounds, new arrangements, pushing the boundaries of his own creative comfort zone. The collaboration with Elton, though brief and unofficial, had opened a new door, a new pathway for his artistic expression. Unbeknownst to them, the viral aspect of their jam session had already begun. The studio engineers, captivated by the raw energy and undeniable magic of the session, had made copies of the tapes. These weren't for public release. Not yet, but for private listening, shared amongst a select few within the music industry. Whispers began to circulate. Lennon's found his spark again. He's playing with a fire we haven't heard in years. And Elton John, he's a force to be reckoned with. The ripple effect was subtle at first, a quiet hum beneath the surface, but it was growing, gaining momentum. The consequences of that afternoon were profound, not just for John, but for the trajectory of his career. The seeds of future collaborations, of a renewed sense of purpose, were sown in that Tittenhurst studio. John, who had been teetering on the brink of artistic isolation, found himself pulled back into the vibrant current of contemporary music. The transformation was internal, a subtle shift in perspective, a rediscovery of the joy that had once defined his creative life. He was still John Lennon, still complex, still contradictory, but now he carried a new melody within him, a testament to the unforeseen power of an unannounced visit and an impromptu jam session. The world was about to hear a different kind of John Lennon, one touched by the vibrant, audacious spirit of a young Elton John. Months later, the whispers coalesced into a roar. A single grainy photograph, taken by a discreet studio assistant, began to circulate. John Lennon, leaning over a piano, a rare, genuine smile on his face. Elton John beside him, a whirlwind of velvet and laughter. The image, a fleeting glimpse into a private moment, became a symbol of a new era, a bridge between the old guard and the new wave. The bootleg recordings, once confined to hushed circles, found their way into the hands of eager fans. Their raw, unpolished sound, a testament to the authenticity of that day. The world, hungry for any scrap of news from the reclusive Lennon, devoured the story. The narrative of the unannounced visit, the impromptu jam, the unexpected camaraderie, captured the public imagination. It wasn't just a musical event, it was a human one, a story of connection in a fractured world. The viral nature of the session wasn't about internet clicks, but about the rapid, fervent spread of a compelling truth. John Lennon was not just surviving, he was creating, he was connecting, he was alive. The true impact, however, remained a secret held close by John himself. The session with Elton had not merely sparked a collaboration, it had reignited a fundamental joy in his own music, a reminder of the pure, unadulterated pleasure of creation. Free from the weight of expectation, it had shown him that even in the deepest solitude, connection could find its way in, unexpected and transformative. He had found a new kind of freedom in that shared space, the liberation from the self-imposed prison of his own legend. Years later, reflecting on that day, John would offer only a cryptic smile. Elton, he'd once mused, he just turned up, like a bright, noisy bird in a very quiet garden. And sometimes, a quiet garden needs a bit of noise, doesn't it? The true depth of that encounter, the profound shift it initiated in John's spirit, remained an enigma, a hidden truth known only to him. Was it merely a jam session, a fleeting moment of musical synergy? Or was it something more, a turning point, a silent revolution within the soul of a legend, sparked by an uninvited guest and a shared melody. The echoes of Tittenhurst still carry the faint, intertwined notes of two pianos, two voices, forever bound by a day when the quiet was shattered and a new song began to play. And in that shattering, perhaps, a piece of John Lennon was finally set free.